to my podcast about sports, about sports, about sports.
Corey.
What's up, diggity dog?
Howdy, Ags from the Tailgate, home of Aggie football. This episode brought to you by Matthews Electric, full-service electrical contractor in the Brazos Valley. No job too big, no job too small. Call Blaine at 979-220-6403. Light up your home, light up your life. Corey, we saw Blaine this weekend, didn't we?
Big Blaine, big bad Blaine.
Big bad Blaine. Big bad Blaine.
Gave me a ride home. Appreciate you, Blaine. Thank you for the ride.
Yes, sir. We needed it.
Yep.
Email us at agstailgate@gmail.com. Don't forget to visit the YouTube. Subscribe. Send us some comments on the YouTube. Let us know what you're thinking. Do you have questions? Do you want to contribute to the show? Whatever. You want to tell Corey how much he sucks? That's fine too.
Tell me.
Today's rundown is brought to you by Frida Homes, building Aggie dreams, custom home builders with over 15 years of experience in the Brazos Valley. If you're looking for someone that cares about you and the details that you care about, contact Frida Homes. Give Justin a call at 979-450-4466. When you call, just remember, everyone loves their Frida Homes.
Their Frida Homes.
Love it. We saw.
I got to give it to Frida, man. That was some hospitality he gave us.
Yeah, it lots of.
Even covered me up and turned the TV on for me. Made sure I was right at home. I appreciate that.
Hey, he cooked the pizza when I got home.
Oh, bless his heart. I didn't get any pizza.
I'm telling you. Hey, so
tell you what he needs to do is he needs to start leaving a freaking door unlocked. We can get in that place.
We did have to break in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he leaves his cars unlocked, but his doors are locked to the house. You can't get in. Cars, you take anything in the yard.
Lovely. So today's football topic, man, we're going to do some SEC offensive rankings. We'll talk a little bit of SEC offense. We're going to go around the league a little bit. But let's start off with a little bit of Aggie basketball. We're not going to spend much time on Aggie basketball because they suck.
What? They come off a big win.
Big win against Georgia this past weekend. A really bad Georgia team, let me just say. But they did go to Georgia on the road. So there you go. You take that for whatever it's worth. Today they play Mississippi State a little bit later tonight at Reed Arena. Then they go to Ole Miss on Saturday. Ole Miss, Mississippi State, by the way, playing pretty good basketball lately. Ole Miss has kind of taken a downturn, but they've already beat us once, and this time it's on the road. Who knows? They could lose both of those games. I think that one of the biggest things I've taken from this season, Wade Taylor went from an SEC Player of the Year candidate to a guy that scored 4 points against Georgia in a game that we won handily, right? He cannot shoot to save his life.
None of the Aggies can. I don't know what you're talking. He can't. Shit.
Yeah, true.
What game was it we watched the other day where they went 0 for 13 in the first half on 3-pointers? I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? That was just awful.
I'm pretty sure that's not once. That's the only time that's ever happened. The way this team shoots. Look, they're 9th out of 14 teams in the SEC right now, which means that they still get a first round bye. They're probably locked into a first round bye in the SEC tournament, but they're not. They could play Mississippi State or LSU in that first game. They could. They're likely 1-0. In the SEC tournament, they're not making the tourney, right? They're not going to make the
tourney. No, they'll be a 1 or 2 seed in the NIT.
They'll be like a 6 seed in the NIT. Aggie baseball. Aggie baseball. Let's turn to the subject of something positive here. Aggie freaking baseball, man. Unfreaking defeated. 12-0. They just took it to the TU Shorthorns and in Austin at that. 9-2 last night, Corey. 9-2 in Austin, man.
Love it.
Tell me about that.
Oh, man, just the team's been great. The pitching's been fabulous. Probably, I don't know if they're the best in the nation right now through 12 games, but it's the best A&M pitching staff I've seen since I've been in Aggie land.
Number 1 in the country in ERA so far this year.
Right? Who's the best team the Aggies have played? Is it Texas the best team they played?
I don't know, Texas, Arizona State, one of those two.
USC sucked.
Yeah. You know,
I mean, they had. I
I
mean, their
think Texas
cupcake
lost
kids.
like four
Everybody
in a
was
row
saying,
now. Texas, I think, has lost 4 in a row now because I think they got beat 3 games this weekend over the weekend at the Minute Maid
oh,
Classic.
they'll probably win the Big 12.
Yeah. Look, in the SEC, that you'll find out everything you need to know about the Aggies because this weekend is our last series prior to starting the SEC play next weekend. They got Rhode Island this weekend. Next weekend they start SEC play, and right off the bat, Florida, who's ranked number 4 in the country, right? So they're gonna get tested right off the bat. I think it's Florida, Mississippi State, and then Auburn. I don't think Mississippi State's ranked. Auburn's ranked up there, so but Mississippi State's got in the last couple of years has been pretty good. So you're gonna find out everything you need to know about this team over the next few weeks, right?
Right.
Um, Interestingly enough, only one other undefeated team in the top 20, ranked in the top 20 in the country, and that's TCU. TCU, only other undefeated team in the top 20. Pretty
Sloss
impressive.
can build a program.
And understanding that the competition hadn't been great, but like I said, I mean, they just put it 9-2 to Texas, and they're in their home. So it's not like we're talking about, they played one of the worst schedules in the country. I don't think so. I think with games against Arizona State and Texas, and like you said, even Lamar is a scrappy team. I mean, these are teams that other teams are losing to. I
Right.
have been incredibly, incredibly impressed with Montgomery, and
Oh yeah.
man, that dude is just an all around baseball player. He is absolutely nails at the plate right now. Just, I mean, I can't say enough good things of what he's brought to this team after the transfer from obviously from Stanford.
Well, yeah, having him and Lavalette on the same team. I mean, those are two future MLB stars. I think right now. I mean, the way those guys, the way they're hitting the ball, their eye at the plate. It's not even that they're. I mean, they're crushing the ball, but at the same time, they're making contact. They're doing little things, getting on base, things that they're not just the big free swingers going up there taking their hacks, and it's not a home run, it's out.
Right.
They're batting 400 around that area. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and add to that guys like Jackson Appel, who's doing a great
Yeah,
job here, especially has really started to get hot lately. And then Grahovic as well, who's been hitting the ball pretty darn well, and is a freshman by the mind you, right? I mean,
yeah,
those aren't the only guys, but man, I'll tell you, when you have collection of talent like those guys, now all of a sudden you've got protection behind you in the lineup. You got guys ahead of you in the lineup that are getting on base. I mean, it's a really good recipe for scoring a lot of runs. But you go look at the numbers so far, and everybody sort of has especially coming into the season, had a belief that well, this team is set up for success offensively. They're going to score a ton of runs. They're going to win games. Scoring double-digit runs and all this, and they've done pretty well. They're 16th in batting average, 4th in walks, 11th in runs in the country. So those are pretty good numbers. Pretty darn good.
yeah,
But it's the pitching staff so far that has actually dominated, man.
yeah,
The pitching staff. You go look at guys like Prager, who still has a 0 ERA so far. Lampkin has less than a 1 ERA so far. Aschenbeck, who had, I think, allowed some runs early on in the season, he's down to 1.15 ERA. He's pitched 15 freaking innings. He's pitched as much as the starters, Aschenbeck. Cortez as the Tuesday starter, so the last couple of weeks has got 12 innings pitched, 1.42 ERA. Remember what we talked about with Cortez and how we were worried about what he was going to do. His stuff is good. Can he actually pitch?
control.
So far so good for that, right?
Yeah, he's always had control issues. He had a little bit of problem last night, from what I hear, but I didn't see the game. I just read the stats and listened to some other people talk about it. But man, the team, they got all these guys that we don't talk about. Like, one of the greatest baseball players of all time, Jeff Kent, great second baseman. His son is just he's doing his dad right. I don't know
Yeah,
what you're
yeah,
laughing
yeah.
about there.
Splitting time on second base, baby. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Let me get back. Let me give you some numbers on this pitching staff, man.
Go ahead.
Let me give you some numbers. All right. Number 1 in ERA, number 4 in hits allowed per 9 innings, and number 2 in WHIP. All right.
Right.
ERA for the entire staff, 1.41. That is ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. Unheard of. A
There's no
WHIP.
way it can stay like that. It's got to. I mean, if they stay around a 3, that would be great.
Yeah.
What you're talking about right now is it's not possible to maintain that.
No, and you're going to get into SEC, and obviously that's going to change, but still pretty impressive. So a WHIP of 0.95, a WHIP under 1 as a staff, as an
Right.
entire staff. That is ridiculous. 136 strikeouts to only 31 walks. You remember what the story was last year with this pitching staff?
Flip it.
Flip it.
Walks.
They
They're putting
couldn't
people on
they couldn't
base.
throw strikes to save their life.
Yeah, they were walking in runs.
The last number that I want to give you, 0 home runs allowed.
Really?
Goose egg.
Hmm.
0 home runs allowed. Dude, I'm telling you, this is impressive, man. That's impressive. And it doesn't
You
really
give that
matter
much
who the
credit to the
competition
pitching
is.
coach? You give that much credit to the pitching coach?
Yeah,
Everybody else is.
They've done a great job in turning things around from last year to this year. And I am 100% on board with the pitching coach and the credit that he's getting. He deserves every bit of it. Now, mind you, right? You don't get judged in the first month and a half of the season, right? You're going to get judged in, your SEC and your playoffs and those types of things. They're going to have to continue to do it, but I don't have any doubt. I don't have any doubt that they're going to continue to play well. I don't.
Right. I mean, I don't think they're going to go undefeated this year. I think they're going to lose. I mean, what's a good number for losses in an SEC conference? I mean, they're probably they could be undefeated heading into SEC play.
Yeah, they very well could be undefeated heading into SEC play. And here's the other thing, we always talk about it. Just go out and win series, right? Once you get into SEC play, just go win series. And if you come out of there and you win, the great majority of your series, which I think they will, you're gonna be one of the top seeds and hosting a super regional at the end of the day, right? Especially coming out of the SEC. So
yeah, I mean, but like you said earlier, they're playing number 4 Florida. Who else is up there? Tennessee, I'm sure. LSU. I mean, you name them. It's just the list is daunting.
It'll be a gauntlet. I think, and we talked about it this weekend as we were watching them play. The strength of this team right now is actually the depth of this pitching staff. And that plays perfectly for a team trying to make it a long ways in the tournament, right? In the regionals, in the super regionals.
I mean,
the World Series.
Listen to this. Listen, it's Arkansas, number 2 in the nation. Arkansas.
Yeah.
LSU, number 3. Florida, number 4. Tennessee or A&M's number 7. Tennessee, number 8. I mean, you just keep going. Alabama, 15. Auburn, 19. South Carolina, 21. And they just beat Texas, who was number 24. I mean, that's just it doesn't get easy.
That schedule is never easy in the SEC. It's never easy in the SEC, man. If you can get out of that gauntlet at the end of the year, you're going to be well tested and you're going to be ready to play. And like I said, I do think that their depth at the pitching staff is going to be a key contributor to how they win series in the SEC, even against some of this top competition, including Florida in a week and a half, and Mississippi State the week after that, Auburn the week after that, right? But those top ranked teams, that's where I think we have. I'm not going to say an advantage, but I am going to say an advantage. I think the depth in the pitching staff is going to give us an advantage. And as that moves down the line further, as we're talking about a regional or a super regional where you got to go play 3 games against the same team, that's huge. When you got to go play in the World Series and you got to go back to back days. I mean, just that's huge, right? That depth.
Oh, yeah. They're deep. I mean, there's always little injuries that happen throughout the season. I mean, we saw your boy, what's his name, got hurt. He dealt with something all last year. The right fielder, what was his name? I can't think of it right now.
Minute.
Yeah, Minnick. He got, he was dinged up, and think if he was healthy last year. That was a crazy lineup they had last year. I mean, they lose Moss. You think you're losing quite a bit with Moss, which you do, but the offense seems better almost. And you had somebody like Montgomery. That's just
Wow.
it's nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a huge, huge pickup. Heck, on most teams, he's probably a starter. He's probably a weekend starter, right?
Pitching?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see where this team goes. It's a long road to go for sure, but I've got expectations of hosting a super regional in College Station. Man, that is one of the best things to ever see in College Station, because the fans and the crowd get absolutely crazy out there at Bluebell. And so I think it's going to be great, man. I think they're going to absolutely just rock the house over there when super regional time comes.
I'm with you.
All right, Corey, let's move on to a little football, man. Let's move on to a little football. And we talked about it. We want to talk about sort of SEC offenses, man. And let's start off by talking about what the rankings were last year.
Okay.
I think everybody probably knows who the number one ranked offense in the SEC was last year. I think it's fairly evident. You want to take a guess at it?
Jaden Daniels.
It's Jaden Daniels.
I
That's
mean,
right.
it wasn't. I don't think it was the offense. I think it was basically Jaden Daniels. Because I mean,
Well,
their running game didn't scare you.
I'd give credit to those two wide receivers out there.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, LSU and Jaden Daniels and those guys, they were the best offense in the country. They were the best offense in the SEC. He was the best player in the country. I mean, all the praise you want to give them, that's LSU. So they were number one
Easy money.
and they're in their own category last year. How about number two? You want to take a guess at two?
I'm not even looking at it. I'm gonna guess. Man, I'm thinking Ole Miss or Alabama. I don't think Georgia was up there. Who was it?
It was Georgia. And that's exactly where I was
Number
going.
two?
Georgia, who normally, is known about for their defense, really and truly. Man, the last couple years, they've really done a great job offensively of putting points on the board. And they are the number two ranked offense in the SEC last year, with the two teams that then you mentioned, Ole Miss and Alabama, coming in right behind them, right? Now that group
I was thinking Missouri too. I forgot about Missouri. They had a good offense. They put up a lot of points last year.
Missouri was actually ranked behind A&M. Missouri was dominated by their defense. Their defense dominated more than their offense, actually. And
Get out of here.
yeah, no, I'm telling you, Missouri was actually behind A&M. So I think those three, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Bama, are sort of LSU its own tier. Georgia, Ole Miss, and Bama last year were their kind of that second tier. Then you had an A&M, Missouri, kind of Tennessee tier. Okay.
No, I think those A&M stats are kind of gaudy because they had some really big games.
Right.
They had some really bad games. I mean,
right.
Who was it? Mississippi State. We ran up and down the field on. I mean, that just inflates our numbers.
Yeah, but you could say that about pretty much anybody, because Ole Miss had great games, but then they scored 10 points against Alabama and maybe 10 points against Georgia or something, right? Like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, but I just think A&M's numbers were just Missouri played. It seemed like a pretty tough schedule, and they were putting points up. It seemed like on everybody.
and I'm telling you, this is based off of points per game, right? This is at a points per game average that we're taking into account here. But I would put the A&M offense last year in a category there with Mizzou and Tennessee at times, right? When they were playing well, I think they're there. Tennessee was way down with Joe Milton, right? They struggled. They struggled at times to move the ball when they couldn't, especially if they couldn't run the football, right?
Yeah.
I may even put A&M and Missouri in a category on their own, and then bring Tennessee down to a category with Kentucky last year. Maybe Kentucky and Florida, Tennessee, all in one little category. Florida, who did a pretty good job of scoring points last year, especially because I don't think anybody expected it with Merch at the quarterback and whatnot, and they ended up being a better offense than you think. Arkansas, Auburn, South Carolina, and the next group there. None of these teams really did much last year. Not a whole lot to be said there. But then the last two, Vandy and Mississippi State. Mississippi State was the worst offense in the league last year. Did you expect that?
Once what's his name got hurt, Will Rogers. You can't. I mean, that we watched them play against A&M.
I was going to say
was
once
ugly.
Once the Pirate died, I put him down there.
Yeah, I mean that offense. We watched them play against A&M, and you were saying they should fire the coach at halftime.
And fortunately for them, they did fire him shortly after.
Yeah.
That guy was maybe the worst coach I've ever seen come into a place ever.
Yeah.
Zach
Had no game plan, no plan at all.
Yeah, they looked lost. They looked lost, and the funny thing was that he's a defensive guy, right? And they did have some defensive talent. Actually, the last 2 years that defense hasn't been terrible, but he's a defensive guy, and at times they looked lost defensively too, right? Like they didn't have a plan on where they were going. So,
I mean, our second string quarterback came in and they made him look like an All-American. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not trying to knock on Henderson. He's good.
yeah,
But damn, I mean, the guy was doing whatever he wanted to against Mississippi State.
he had a big time game. Yeah, he had a big time
Yeah.
game. All right, so look, we know who it was last year. We know who it was last year. Now, let's take a look at what we think for 2024. And I think in the same sense of what we saw from last year, kind of there's tiers, right? There's sort of these tiers. Let's try to divide these teams up into some tiers, right? And so let's I don't know, let's start at the bottom. 2024.
All right.
As far as the worst offenses in the league in the SEC for next year, remember, you got to bring in Oklahoma and Texas to this mix, right? You got to bring Oklahoma and Texas into this mix. Who do you see that's out there is going to be the worst? Kind of the worst, that little tier, 2 or 3 teams.
Vandy.
So Vandy's in a tier of their own.
Yeah, I think they're in a tier by themselves. They don't have the talent to be in a tier, to be honest with you. I mean, I think didn't they lose their starting quarterback? Didn't he transfer out too or something? I don't know. Every time one of their guys has
I think they lost all.
They lost everybody. I mean, I feel sorry for them. I think South Carolina's going to struggle.
So before we go to South Carolina, because I agree with you. I think this is like last year, except flipped in the sense that, we talked about last year, LSU's in a tier of their own. Here this year in 24, it's going to be Vandy in a tier of their own. The worst offense in the league, and nobody else is going to be close to them, right? Look, it's
getting even harder for them because they got to play more SEC teams now, right?
Yeah,
they're going to play Oklahoma and Texas, maybe. I don't know who they play.
And here's the other thing. Like you said, they lost their starting quarterbacks. They lost basically all their quarterbacks. They hired a new offensive coordinator from New Mexico State, right? And they brought in his quarterback with him. So Diego Pavia is the supposed starter over there at Vandy. And, he did pretty good as a New Mexico State quarterback. He did all right. He wasn't out of this world. How's that gonna look against an SEC schedule? How's that gonna look against an SEC schedule without this, the necessary supporting cast, right? The wide receivers, the offensive line, the running backs. What do you expect from this? I mean, are they going to score 15 a game?
Probably, just because the other team pulled everybody by the third quarter. I mean, it's just going to be, I hate to say it. I mean, they're going to have to play ugly football. They're going to have to make the games really ugly. They're not going to be able to go out there and run and gun and throw the ball. They're going to have to They're going to have to go old school because they just don't have the talent to compete. They're going to have to do almost what Army and Navy do and get in the wishbone and control the clock and just grind it out. Make the games ugly. Because if they try to, this talent itself is going to be their downfall.
The crazy part to me is that there's certain teams that, the whole transfer portal and things have helped, an Ole Miss, that kind of stuff. Vandy, it's gone the other way, right? Because every time they've got a player that's anywhere near decent, he leaves.
Gone. See ya.
Back last year that, that went to Kentucky, right? Rice or whatever. An offensive
That
tackle
could be their selling point, though. They could use that as a selling point. If they're smart, they could use that as a selling point. Say, hey, you come here for a year or two, we'll build you up. And hey, good luck to you. We know what we are.
Start playing a bunch of freshmen and sophomores, right? Like tell the freshmen, like, look, you're going to get on the field, and then in 2 years, somebody else you'll get to the big program, right?
Or go to these small schools that are having really good players that are putting up big numbers. Say, hey, come play in the SEC. Maybe you'll get a shot to transfer to Georgia or Alabama or somewhere that's a football school, because we're definitely not a football school.
I think you got to recruit players with specific skill sets right out of high school and be ready to put them on the field, right? And use those skill sets and put them on the field. And if you lose them in 2 years, you lose them in 2 years. And then,
right.
Like you said, in the transfer portal, go find you some of these guys that are just putting up ridiculous numbers in other places, but small schools or whatever, and go give them a shot, right? I mean,
well, the 4-year player is done with, man. There's no longer recruiting a guy thinking he's going to stay with your program for 4 years. It's almost like recruiting him every freaking year now.
Yeah,
like
because
after his freshman,
if they have success at Vandy, they're leaving, right?
Exactly. You have success at Vandy, you're leaving. If you don't have success at Vandy, then probably nowhere else to go. You're probably done.
So I think everybody would agree. Look, this is going to be the worst offense in the league. Let's not spend our entire podcast talking about Vandy's offense. Let's go to the next tier. Let's go to the next tier. So just above Vandy, who do you expect to be in that next tier?
Next tier, like I said, South Carolina, I think is going to struggle. They lost their best offensive weapon and their quarterback, which I think he might have been a little overrated anyway. Auburn, they didn't impress me at all last year. They couldn't move the ball. I'll tell you who, another team, I don't know. They disappointed me. It was Tennessee. I didn't like their offense last year. I don't know if it was because of Milton, the play calling.
Yeah, but they're not going to be in this next tier. They're not going to be in the top.
I don't know. I think they could be. I mean, who's your quarterback?
No. Listen. Tennessee will be a bottom 4 offense in this league. Huh?
You don't think they are?
No, guaranteed will not be a bottom 4 offense. Guaranteed. Call it right now. I will bet my entire savings account. Tennessee, not bottom 4.
Okay.
Let me tell you the teams that I'm thinking, and you've named a couple of them, but Auburn. I think Auburn is
coming back. Who's coming back for Arkansas? Who's their quarterback?
I think Arkansas is in that next tier. Right?
Who do you have?
And I also think Mississippi State has a chance to be in that next tier.
Oh, yeah. Mississippi State.
I think those 3 teams, to me, even more than South Carolina.
What about Kentucky?
I think Kentucky has a chance to be in that tier, but maybe one tier above.
Okay.
And so, look, talk about Auburn. They're back, they brought back Peyton Thorne, the guy that was there last year, right? And, everybody wants to give the guy, he had some, whatever, man. He had some decent, sure. He had a whole lot of bad games, too, where he didn't.
See their best quarterback on their team last year?
Yeah. I mean, Ashford was the other guy, right?
Yeah. I thought Ashford showed me more than Thorne did sometimes with his athletic ability.
Neither one of them could throw a lick.
No. That's what I'm saying. I thought Ashford was a better option because of his wheels.
Now, to be honest with you, you go into that and you say, okay, they didn't have a lot of support as far as, great athletes around them either, right? They didn't have great receivers. They didn't have the running backs were pretty good, right? But, so they're going to have to replace some running backs this year at Auburn. and their receiving group is a bunch of new incoming guys. I mean, the freshman that they took from us in the recruiting class, Cam, he's expected to be one of their top guys on the outside as a freshman, right off the bat. So Cam Cameron is sort of the guy that they're putting their savior hat on, right? This guy's going to make a difference for us. And look, he's that kind of player. Yeah, he can make a difference for you, but he's a freshman. He's a
And who's
freshman.
going to get him the ball? Who's getting him the ball?
That's correct. Who's going to
That's
get
what
him
sucks about being a receiver. You're counting on somebody to throw you the damn ball.
And as of right now, it's Peyton Thorne, and that dude doesn't do it for me. So to me,
No.
and even with your boy being the play caller over there, how much you love, what's his name?
Freeze?
Yeah, Hugh Freeze. You love that guy.
Oh, yeah.
I have a
he's
feeling
good.
Hugh Freeze's second stint in the SEC is going to be a lot rougher than his first one.
He'll turn around.
So I think Auburn's in there. They still and they lost the running backs. They don't have the same guys that they had a couple years ago. The offensive line has struggled throughout this process. I'm not seeing anything that's really pushing me to think that Auburn's going to be that much better. I think they're right there at the bottom. Arkansas. They bring in your boy Petrino, man, as the new offensive coordinator. Is Petrino? Is he going to be able to turn things around at Arkansas?
Who's their quarterback this year?
Well, they've got the Boise State transfer, Taylor Green, and he wasn't good at Boise State. So there you go.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's so many things up in the air. I mean, who has more talent, Arkansas or Auburn? I mean, I don't know. I like Hugh Freeze better than I like Petrino, and the coach last year for Arkansas. I thought he'd get fired. He's always been a good offensive line coach, but last year they sucked. And they were just awful. I mean, I'm talking awful.
Look, and you go look at that Arkansas roster, and once again, and we talked about this last year going into the season, they don't have great weapons on the outside either.
No.
I mean, Aggie defense made them look good at times.
Yeah, we do that.
But they don't have great weapons on that are going to take pressure off a quarterback, right? Weapons that are going to take offensive line didn't play well. Take pressure off the quarterback, right? Running game, wasn't as good last year. Take pressure off the quarterback. Arkansas, we know what Bobby Petrino is going to do. We saw it. We saw it last year.
I have no idea. I don't even know if I saw Bobby Petrino's offense last year. I thought I saw Jimbo's.
Well, don't worry. Bobby and Jimbo, the reason he hired Bobby is because they're very similar in a lot of ways. So we've seen Bobby Petrino's offense. Look, I don't expect this thing at Arkansas to get turned around next year. I don't see the talent level there offensively in order for this to go from zero to hero, right?
Yeah.
I don't see it. And especially with a guy like Taylor Green at the quarterback, I mean, all due respect, Mr. Taylor Green, but you suck. All right? He's not an SEC caliber quarterback. At some point, I would bet that they end up playing a young quarterback behind them and giving them a chance because Taylor Green isn't getting the job done. That's what I would expect for this Arkansas team. That's why I expect them to be in that lower tier as an offense in the SEC. I think Pittman probably gets fired after next season because of the fact that this offense is going to suck and the defense ain't going to be that great, right? They're not going to win a lot of games.
Right.
Now, Pittman is an alum, so maybe they love him so much that they don't fire him. I think he gets fired after next year.
Yeah, I thought he would get fired after last year, but what do I know?
Hey, there's a good chance we see Bobby Petrino as the interim head coach somewhere before the season's over.
Get him, Bobby.
And then he'll buy a motorcycle, and it's all going to be over after that, right?
Who was the other team? South Carolina. Talk about them.
Before I want to go Mississippi State.
Oh God, I don't even know anybody on the team.
So Jeff Levy's now the head coach, right? Coming in from Oklahoma, former Ole Miss offensive coordinator, worked with, Lane, and did some decent things with Gabriel over there at Oklahoma the last 2 years. But now he's going to Mississippi State, and once again, this team has been so mismanaged over the last year and a half that there's no talent there. There's no talent there. And he brings in a guy in Blake Shapen, who's been in a couple of different places. Baylor, the most, but he got benched at Baylor, right? It's not like this guy had a phenomenal year at Baylor and is coming in like this hot, quarterback, trying to join Levy in this new, more explosive offense. I mean, Shapen hadn't been good. So what's this belief that all of a sudden he's going to get over there and become this great quarterback? I don't understand it. I'll tell you this, I fully expect, even under an offensive-minded head coach, I fully expect this team to struggle to score points.
Ah, that's like half the SEC's going to have a shitty offense. Go ahead.
Yeah, and on top of that, I mean, they still haven't fully restocked the talent pool from what they were doing under Mike Leach, right? I mean, that team was still built to do sort of that type of offense, and it hadn't really been retooled yet. So I don't know,
Well, that's
maybe
the thing.
Levy
Mike
over the next
Leach
couple of
never
years, huh?
Mike Leach never went out and got 4 and 5-star players. He did
No,
upper threes. He found his guys.
he was looking for guys with particular skill sets that he could coach, right?
Yeah.
And that's not always the case that doesn't match everybody's thing. And so I do, and maybe Levy over the next couple of years starts bringing in a little bit more talent and get some pieces out there so he can open that offense up and make it at least a fun, football to watch. It won't be this year. It won't be this year. They've got too much talent to replace right now that it's going to take them more than one season. So I feel like Mississippi State's in that bottomish tier.
Yeah, I think so too. I
All
think
right, the team,
Auburn's better. I think Auburn's better off than Mississippi State is, by the way.
they could be. And
I think
that's
they are.
sort of why I was putting them in a tier. One of those two, either one of those teams, depending on schedule or whatever, could end up a little bit better than the other. I mean,
I think
I'm
Auburn's
not.
gonna be better. I think Hugh Freeze's second season's gonna be better. That's my opinion.
Peyton Thorne's still the quarterback, so I doubt it's going to be that much better.
Well, we'll see.
So let's go to the team that you've been wanting to talk about, South Carolina.
Yeah.
And
Are they in the same tier?
I'd probably put this team in a tier with maybe Kentucky, who you also mentioned, maybe a Florida,
Well, who does Florida have? Does Mertz coming back at quarterback?
Mertz is coming back at quarterback, but they lost Etienne at running back. They lost Pearsall at the wide receiver spot, right? So they've got some big pieces that left,
But
right?
I think they're starting. I think they showed that they were coming around a little bit last year. They had some big wins. I think Florida's better than I think they're better off than South Carolina. Kentucky, I mean, they lost their quarterback, but he didn't do much last year. They lost their top running back. They never have wide receivers in Kentucky. I don't know who the hell catches the ball. But
Yeah, and I agree with you. Florida could be a little bit better than these two teams, a little bit.
yeah, I put Florida a little bit above them. I put these teams. I mean, I really think Auburn's right there with these teams. If you ask me, I'm not an Auburn fan. I just think they're right there with these teams, just as bad.
Uh,
Make it that way.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. For some reason, I think Auburn's worse, but you could be right. I mean, look at
I'm
South
pretty sure
Carolina. I think it's going to come down to they still yet to really fix the offensive line problem, right?
Yeah, that's huge. I
And
mean, what makes you like South Carolina so much more than Auburn or Mississippi State? What have they shown you? They just lost.
nothing.
That's what I
I
was
think
curious about.
their
They lost their
coaches. I think
quarterback,
I
and
like their coach. And I think their coach has done decent things in the past with them. But they've got now a redshirt freshman quarterback that's expected to take the reins here in Lenoris Sellers. Everybody's really excited about Lenoris Sellers. He's a good athlete. He can, I think they're going to try to, basically build this offense around him. But once again, supporting pieces. Not only has the offensive line struggled in the past, but they lost some of their better receivers, right? Leggett,
Yeah.
gone pro. Juice Wells transferred out. So some of those things that they used to have, some of these weapons that they had around what's his name, the other quarterback, um, are sort of gone, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to have to get some production, probably out of some young guys, in order for this offense to work. But I do expect that Sellers is going to be the center point of this offense, and I wouldn't be surprised to see some quarterback run and all that good stuff involved in there as well.
How many years is Sellers a redshirt freshman or what?
Redshirt freshman. That's right.
Okay.
So let's talk Kentucky. Kentucky, I don't really know. Remember, and here's the thing, and I don't know if there was some discussion about the fact that they lost their offensive coordinator. They fired an offensive coordinator, right? And they brought back Cohen, who had been there a couple years ago. He's sitting there, and he was going to be the offensive coordinator this year. And there's some rumors that because of the fact that basically Stoops was looking around A&M for jobs, that Cohen was like, well, fuck this, I'm out of here. I don't know what's going on, right? I may lose this job anyway if he leaves. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so he ended up and he bolted to the pros. So he had to then scramble and find a new offensive coordinator, right? And so there's a lot of all that to say that it seems like there's a lot of like questionable moves is going on with regards to this Kentucky offense. And once again, they're starting a new quarterback, a guy that doesn't have any experience in reality, but he's a 5-star kid that committed to Georgia. And now Brock Vandagriff is the starting quarterback at Kentucky. Can they get the 5-star talent out of him?
No.
Wow, that was quick.
No, they won't. They'll run the ball. They're going to be a run heavy team. They'll run it and try to play stingy defense because they're a program a lot like Mississippi State, except they're doing it a lot better than what Mississippi State is doing. They understand their weaknesses and they're like, hey, this is what we're not good at. We can't out talent this team.
Yeah, I do think that with Kentucky, part of the problem is that they're also replacing probably the best running back in the SEC from last year, right?
That kid was good.
The dude was a monster. The dude was
Yeah,
an
he
absolute
ran hard.
And he's gone. He's gone to the pros. So, where's the running game coming from? Where's the support for Vandagriff coming from? They do have some guys with potential at wide receivers, some guys that the numbers haven't been there yet, but that look like they've got some talent and can do some things with a better quarterback throwing them the football. But as well as I do, for all that to happen, the scheme's got to be better, right? The scheme the last couple of years has just been awful for Kentucky, and they haven't been able to do squat offensively in spite of the fact that they had a second-round quarterback and then another transfer quarterback this past year who's supposedly going to get drafted again. So, what do they do?
Yeah, I hear you.
So, all right. So we think that those teams maybe right there. Okay, so you think Florida's a little ahead of that. So would you put Florida in a group with maybe Tennessee?
Yeah, I mean, I said earlier, I think Tennessee's offense, well, they let me down last year. I watched them play against A&M, against Alabama. I mean, yeah, those were two good defenses, but Milton didn't impress me. The play calling really didn't impress me. I was kind of disappointed in Heupel's play calling. Milton has a huge arm, but they didn't seem to take advantage of it. They seem to. He's not a short passer. He's not a touch passer. He's going to gun it in there.
Well, he also misses receivers by a mile. So this year they've got Nico Yamaleva. I probably missaid that
You said it right.
1,000
That's right.
times, but
Yeah, that's right.
Nico is a guy that looks like he's got nice touch on his throw when he played some last year there in the bowl game and stuff like that. I mean, he had some nice moments. You know, like you didn't see much from him last year, so you never know. But boy, they're high on him in Tennessee. They're high on him in Rocky Top, and he does have help. He does have, unlike some of these guys that we've talked about before, he's got help. Brew McCoy is back on the outside. Squirrel White is back on the outside. Those are two big time wide receivers in the SEC that have done it before. You know, they are replacing a running back that's probably going to be one of the higher running backs drafted, not a first rounder or anything, but a good running back. But at the end of the day, to me, he's got some weapons around him with the system, obviously, that their coach brings and all that. They're going to throw the football, right? They're going to get the ball out there to those weapons and give them a chance. If this guy can be better than Milton at actually getting them the football, you know, they're probably gonna put up some numbers. They're probably gonna put up some numbers because you know they're gonna go fast, and you know they're gonna air the ball out, right?
Yeah. Well, they run the ball a lot too. For a team
Yeah.
that you think airs it, that goes fast, they run the ball pretty well and quite often. And also in that tier that we're talking about, our Big 12 teams, I think, might be just a little bit above them, the two Big 12 teams. And I'm not going to say one's better than the other because I watched them play last year, but I just know that one of those Big 12 teams lost a lot of talent.
You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Oklahoma was right there with Tennessee.
Yeah.
Florida. And before we skip over Florida, I mean, you know, obviously, look, Florida and those guys, they did a pretty good year, had a pretty decent year offensively last year. I mean, their defense was horrible, horrible, horrible. So we hired all their defensive coaches here at A&M for that reason.
Genius.
But that offense was actually decent. Graham Mertz probably performed a little bit better than most people expected. He still wasn't great. And you know, I think people are jumping on board of that offense a little bit more than last year. I fully expect Florida to win like 3 games this year, and that offense is their strength. It's still going to be mediocre at best.
You expect Florida to win 3 games next year? Is that what you said? At least 3?
Maybe 4.
Is that a good season? Is that what you're saying? Man, Florida's going to have a good year. They're going to win at least 3 games.
Right.
Okay,
good. But Ricky Pearsall was their best wide receiver, dude. That catch that he made over the middle, that one with man. You know, Etienne was, you know, they're one of their better players on offense as well. He's gone. He's playing at Georgia, I think. Right?
Good for him. Yeah.
So
money.
So those are guys, they're probably 2 of their best players on offense, and they're gone. They're gone. You know, I don't see this offense getting better. I see them taking a step back in spite of another year of Graham Mertz.
Yeah.
I expect Florida to be worse.
I don't know. It's all about the offensive line play.
Offensive line's important.
It's huge.
So Oklahoma's going to come into the SEC from the Big 12.
Yeah.
They're probably right around that tier, right? In the same group as as Tennessee.
Possibly. I mean, they have a new quarterback. They have a bunch of unknowns everywhere else. I mean, I think Stoops' son is one of their top wide receivers. If he's back, I don't know if he graduated or not.
Gone.
Well, they're screwed.
Yeah, he was their best wide receiver last year. You know, most consistent for sure, and he's gone. They've got that freshman Anderson that man really started to do some things later in the season last year, and I expect him to continue that. So he's a guy that's definitely going to, you know, take some of that limelight, you know, that Stoops had there. But you know, the thing about it is that there was times when you watch this offense and Dylan Gabriel just carried him, absolutely carried him,
absolutely.
And now you've got a guy that was a freshman last year. You got a guy that was a freshman last year, Jackson Arnold, and he got a little bit of playing time, but is he going to be able to put this offense on his back and carry them like the way Dylan Gabriel did at times last year? I don't know. I don't know if he's ready for it.
I got it.
So, you know, just because of that, I think they're replacing a number of their offensive linemen. now their offensive line coach has always been very good. He's been absolutely phenomenal since he's been there. I mean, he always puts out big time talent. We'll see if he can take and basically get 5 new guys ready to play and at a high level all in one offseason. But, I got to think that they take a step back. I got to think they take a step back going from Dylan Gabriel to a guy that's basically starting for the first time in Jackson Arnold, right? I mean,
Well, they're also playing an SEC schedule, not a Big 12 schedule. So, I mean, the talent upgrades, there's going to be immense. I mean, you're playing SEC defenses, not Big 12 defenses. You're not going to go in scoring 60, 70 points a game. You're going to come in and get your ass kicked. And I think Venables will be on the hot seat halfway through the season.
I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised.
Yeah.
Look, we got 7 teams left. 7 teams left that we haven't
All right.
talked.
Go ahead.
I'm going to leave A&M out for right now. We're going to talk A&M last. Okay. So we got 6 other teams. And to me, these 6 other teams, I would put them in probably 2 tiers. 2 tiers.
Who are they?
To me, at the top tier, the very top, you got Georgia, Ole Miss, and Bama. Do you disagree?
I'd put Ole Miss and Georgia up there. I'd put Missouri up there ahead of Alabama. That's just me. The reason I put Missouri, they got that wide receiver that I like so much.
Luther
They got their
Burden.
quarterback coming back. I really like that Missouri team. But Georgia, Alabama losing your coach, Milton, he was everything to that team last year, and they have him back. But have his weapons gotten better or worse? They lost Bond to wide receiver. Or Milrow, that's what I meant. He was everything to that team. He's back, and they lost their wide receiver Bond to Texas, right? Whatever that kid's name was. I mean,
he gone. Let me tell you something.
I'm right there on the fence. I mean, Alabama's.
We haven't been on the same page at all today. We have not been on the same page at all today.
Well, you're wrong. That's all I'm telling you. When you're wrong, you're wrong.
I'm almost thinking that Alabama may be my favorite offense in the SEC next year.
Yeah, you're way off there.
And let me tell you why. Let me
You
tell
know
you,
they had a coaching change.
DeBoer is the reason why.
Okay.
Because you saw what he did at Washington with that offense.
He had Michael Penix.
Yeah. Hold on. Michael Penix, who at Indiana
was not Penix.
Michael Penix, who at Indiana was a mediocre quarterback.
Mediocre? He was great at Indiana.
Mediocre.
Great.
Go look at his numbers. Pull them up.
Oh, I looked him up already. He's great.
So, and he took that offense with Michael Penix. And don't get me wrong, man. I love me some Michael Penix. I keep seeing these damn draft gurus talk about the rankings of the quarterbacks coming out in this draft, and they got Bo Nix and J.J. McCarthy ranked ahead of him. I laugh at the teams that draft Bo Nix and J.J. McCarthy ahead of Michael Penix, because Michael Penix, by the way, at his combine workout, hit everything he threw. Everything he threw, he hit it. You know what McCarthy and Bo Nix didn't do? Hit the things that they threw at. So there's an important characteristic about quarterbacks, and that is they should be able to hit their targets when they throw the football.
And stay healthy.
Those 2 guys can't do it.
Penix can't stay healthy.
Penix, well, he has the last 2 years.
2 years.
All right, well, 2 years. My point is that Washington offense was incredibly explosive. I loved what they did in distributing the ball to their players. I love the fact that they would go attack defenses vertically. Look, I expect Jalen Milrow to have an even better year than he did last year. I expect that dude to absolutely dominate. Look, the offensive coordinator for Alabama last year, worse than the guy that's calling plays this year. That's all I'm telling you. Worse. So not only that, this offensive line is going to play better. They're losing a guy to the NFL. I don't care. They're going to play better next year. The Washington offensive line was excellent last year. That's part of the Bowers system, right?
Who is Alabama's big play threat there?
Well, they're going to have to. Yes, I absolutely believe that some of these wide receivers are going to have to step up, right? Whether it's Prentice or some of those other guys, Kenrick, Hale. Hale's was a big time recruit. Prentice, big time. These are guys. It's not like they're sitting there playing with a bunch of 3-star wide receivers, right? Yeah, Bond's gone. So what? Bond was mediocre for them last year. Go to
And their
Texas and be
offensive line
mediocre
has
over
got
there.
to play. They got to play better on the offensive line. They got to play better.
They do. They do. I agree with that.
I like the quarterback. I like Milroe. I like him. But he doesn't put it. He's kind of like he is a lot like Milton. He doesn't have a lot of touch on his passes sometimes. I mean, he's athletic as
But
hell.
you know what I saw from Milroe? You know what I saw from Milroe is growth throughout the year last year. Growth throughout the year last year.
Oh, like that 40-yard touchdown pass on 4th down. Is that growth?
Hell
Never should have been in
yeah.
that situation, by the way.
Hell yeah. Look, who are they playing against?
Auburn.
They didn't show up for that game. They were like, Auburn, whatever.
The week before, Auburn lost to New Mexico State by like 3 touchdowns.
I do want to make sure that we understand this, right? So right after they almost lost to Auburn, who'd they beat the next week?
Georgia.
Yeah. Georgia, who everybody's got as the number 1 team in the country last year and this year. Everybody's now saying, well, Georgia, if they would have got in, they'd have beat Michigan. So whatever. I mean, listen, yeah, did they not play great against Auburn? Sure they didn't. They won the game though. They didn't play great against Auburn. They were probably looking ahead. They went and beat Georgia.
I didn't know
the
this
next
was
week.
the Alabama podcast. We need to move on. Quit talking about Alabama. You
All
take
right,
that Aggie stuff off. You're not even. You're a Bama fan.
Point taken. I expect them to be right up at the top. And here's another reason why I expect them to be right up at the top. I expect Georgia to take a step back. I do, from their offense from last year. Yeah, is Carson Beck the quarterback back? Sure is. And everybody's saying, oh, best quarterback in the SEC, Carson Beck. He's going to be a number 1 draft pick, Carson Beck. You know what Carson Beck has done? Nothing. Done nothing.
Lost 1 game.
He only lost 1 game. But here's the thing. If you go back and watch them, they did not put the games on him last year at all, right? Bowers dominated for them last year. When games were sketchy and they were tight, it was Brock Bowers that made plays for them, not Carson Beck, okay? Ladd McConkey made tons of plays for them, not Carson Beck. Those guys are gone, by the way.
Yeah, they're gone. But Georgia, man, they've stockpiled all this talent. I mean, these guys will step up that have so much talent that aren't getting the ball, and all of a sudden 1 week. I mean, it could be week in, week out, different players because they just had that much talent. They're gonna be like, you're like, who's this guy that had 200 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns?
Name a guy that's done that over the last couple of years for Georgia. It's always been the same guys. It's been Bowers. It's been McConkey. That's it. Those have been the guys.
They had those other receivers that I don't know if those guys were worth the shit last year or not, but they got in some transfers and whatnot. I don't remember who those guys were that they got. Didn't they get a Vandy receiver?
I expect Georgia to drop down to the 2nd tier offensively. How about that? I'm going to put it there. 2nd tier down.
So who do you have in the top tier again?
Bama, Ole Miss.
I can see Ole Miss. I like that one. What about LSU and Missouri?
Yeah. So just a real quick on Ole Miss. We can talk about this offense.
We don't need to talk about Ole Miss.
Lane Kiffin has proven his skill as an offensive play caller. He's going to have good offense. Jackson Dart is going to be another year in the system. He's going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC. Truthfully, they've got receivers with Harris and the other guys on that team on the outside. Juice Wells, the former South Carolina guy, by the way. Juice Wells is there. They're going to have weapons on the outside. The question is who's going to be the running back, right? They got to replace Judkins, which they started using multiple running backs a little bit last year. So, the running game may take a little bit of a hit, but I expect them to air the ball out a little bit more. Ole Miss is tier 1 for sure.
All right, you haven't talked about Texas, LSU, and Missouri.
And that's my tier 2. And that is my tier 2. Look, I expect LSU to take a step back. I don't.
Oh, you think they lose Jaden Dan? That's a man. That's a good
Yeah,
call. That's a hot take.
I know.
That's a hot take right there.
But they may step down into that tier with Tennessee and Oklahoma, even. I mean, that far back, right?
I mean, they lose
Look,
2 first round draft pick wide receivers, a first round quarterback. You think they're going to take a step back?
I know. It's crazy.
I like that. That's a good call. That's a good call.
And they lost their offensive coordinator.
To
Look,
who? To who?
Notre Dame.
Ah, damn
Jaden
it.
Daniels, Malik Neighbors, and Thomas, all going to be first round draft picks. That offense, I love Nussmeier, dude. Let me get out here and say this. I love some Nussmeier. Really do. But he's not going to have those same weapons. And he is not Jaden Daniels when it comes to creating plays with his legs specifically, right?
Dude, LSU and Ohio State, I'll put them neck and neck, or wide receiver U in college football. I mean, LSU, it doesn't matter. You say they don't have Neighbors and Thomas, they're going to have 1 or 2 guys step up and you're like, damn, that guy had a big season. It's going to happen. They're not worried about that. LSU is going to put up points. They're going to put up points because
we said that about, and we were saying that
they have to put up points, Alejo, because they can't stop anybody.
That's true, but we were saying that about wide receivers at Alabama 2 years ago, right? When they've gone on a streak of like 2 first-round wide receivers for like 5 straight years or whatever, and it was like, oh, they're just going to plug in the next ones, and all of a sudden, Alabama wide receivers the last 2 years have been nowhere to be found, right? And
LSU does.
We're going to see this. This is going to happen with LSU because they've gone several years now where it's like, oh yeah, super talent, super talent, super talent. At some point, you just hit a brick and you miss on some of these guys, and those aren't the same guys. I'm saying it's happening this year. I'm saying this offense takes a step back. It may be tier 3 in the SEC, to be honest with you.
No, I think tier 3 is Texas. I think they lost a lot. I mean, look at the wide receivers they lost. They're tight end, running backs. The only player they got back for skill position is Ewers. They got that kid from Alabama to play wide receiver, which you just said was overrated.
Yeah. Look, I think Texas is maybe a tier 3, maybe a tier 2, right down the borderline or something like that. I mean, I don't think Ewers is the great player that everybody makes him out to be. Everybody's trying to make him out to be a draftable quarterback, like first-round type quarterback. If you go watch him play, you know, his big plays come in the design stuff that Sark does over there at Texas, right? Sark always has some great design plays. But when you see him and it's 3rd and 8, and he has to actually go make a play as a quarterback, you know, read a defense and go make a play, he misses them. And to me, Ewers is a mediocre quarterback, or slightly above maybe mediocre. And now you're talking about a team that doesn't have Worthy, doesn't have a Donovan Mitchell that's also going to be drafted in the first round, or his first 2 rounds, right? Doesn't have the tight end Sanders, doesn't have the running back Brooks. You know, all of a sudden he's got a whole new arsenal around him that he's got to go build a repertoire with, or a rapport with, sorry. And those guys aren't as talented as the group that's leaving.
No, I hear you. I agree. That's what I'm saying. I think they're going to be
Worthy, by the way, fastest player in NFL Combine history.
4.21 or something, wasn't it?
Wow.
Yeah, he's up there with me. Next, you still haven't talked about Missouri, and I'm all over this Missouri team. You're just
so Mizzou may bring in. Yeah, Mizzou could be into this tier 2. I like that. I like Missouri. I like Missouri specifically for 2 reasons. No, and let me actually back that up. I like Missouri specifically for 1 reason. That is Luther Burden.
He's a badass.
I mean, best wide receiver in the country, and they've got Weiss and Cooper out there on the outside. Those are 2 other good guys. Burden is the man. He's going to be the best wide receiver in the country next year, and I don't think it's going to even be close. Cook is a good quarterback. He's tough. He's going to do it. You know, he's 3rd year in the system, whatever. You know, like I think he's going to be really good. But this offense is going to revolve around Burden. And that's the biggest thing to me. Number 1 in the country, best in the country, period.
Well, they know what they have because they showed it last year with Burden. they got him the ball. They went out of their way to get him the ball. They ran plays specifically to get him the ball, get him in the flow, and he can do amazing things with the ball in his hand. Cook, he's not a pro quarterback. I don't think he might be a backup somewhere, but he's serviceable. They lost their top running back, that little that white kid that ran the ball real hard.
He was
He
good,
was a good running back. They
especially in
lost
that
him.
system.
Huh?
In that system, he was great. Yeah.
Yeah, and that system is great. But yeah, I mean, the only thing I think Missouri might their own success might hurt them because teams will be ready for them this year, kind of like the A&M basketball team.
Yeah.
Seriously,
No, and that's a great point. That is an absolutely great point. You know, the Missouri might be hurt by their success from last year. And, you know, I think
yeah,
everybody expects them to go 10, 11 wins again this year. You know, they're going to have their schedule's actually pretty favorable. Don't get me wrong. But I think they're going to have a hard time because they're going to get everybody's best game. They're going to get everybody's
yeah,
best
absolutely.
game. But
Anybody leave out?
in
We leave
spite of
anybody
that,
out?
in spite of that, I still believe in Burden and I believe in that offense. I think they're going to be really good. They may not be Ole Miss, Alabama good, but they're going to be right there.
Dude, the only team we haven't talked about is A&M, right?
All right. So you tell me. I'm going to let you start this off. Where does A&M in what tier and what of all those tiers? Where does A&M's offense come in?
I'm gonna put them right there, slightly above Oklahoma, Texas, and all this because I like Wegman at quarterback. I like our running back situation. We have a lot of good running backs. Even our wide receivers. I mean, they're not known. You know, people know about Thomas and they know Moose. They don't know Moose like we know Moose. You know what I'm saying? And our tight end situation, if Green comes back healthy, I mean, it. We say it all the time. It all depends on the offensive line. This could be a tier one offense. It could be talent wise. It could be up there in tier one, but realistically, I'm thinking tier three.
I'm going to go one above you, and I'm going to go tier 2. And I think if this offensive line is good, actually good, this offense can be a tier 1 offense. If this offensive line is actually good.
What was our offense last year?
Our offense was a second tier offense last year.
Are you just going by the points we scored?
Yeah, by points
Are you going
scored.
by the eyeball
By
test? If you go by the
points
eyeball test, were we one of
right after Bama.
we were number 5 or 6 in the SEC in offense, you think?
They were number 5 in the SEC in offense last year.
You're just going by points, though. You think the A&M offense was better than Missouri's offense last year?
I mean, what's more important than points? So yes.
Well, we beat up on some teams. We beat up some bad teams.
Could
we have beat Missouri last year?
Every team beat Tampa on bad teams.
I mean, we kicked the shit out of some bad teams.
Look,
I don't know.
I
mean, A&M lost. A&M lost to Tennessee. Was our offense better than Tennessee's offense? I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
yeah. I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe. Yeah, maybe so. Maybe they were a third tier. But I'm going to tell you this. I think talent-wise, they've got all the talent in the world, right? And
no, I agree. That's what I'm saying.
That they were as good as they were last year. They were number 5 in points last year, in spite of the fact that offensive line was as bad as any offensive line in the country. As bad as any offensive line in the country, technique-wise and execution-wise, right? That offensive line was horrendous, and they still scored as many points as they did. If that offensive line is good, actually good, this team has a chance to be a tier 1 offense. I don't think we get there. I think this offensive line does take a significant step forward because you can't go backwards after being coached by Adazio. So I think they take a significant step forward. And to me, that gets them into that tier 2, tier 3 conversation, maybe borderline right in there, with an opportunity to go even higher, right? I do agree. I do think that Moose Muhammad is set up for a breakout season, but he's not the only guy on the outside. You know, you talked about Thomas, Walker, and those guys. The tight ends are the thing that really, really, really excite me. I I'm looking forward to what Colin Klein will do with guys like Green, like Platt, and those guys, the Swede, the transfers, all those guys, right? At tight end, man, you can use those guys in so many different ways with different formations and spread them out and bring them in, mismatch them, dude. If you get creative, that's just gonna kill people. That's just gonna absolutely kill people. And we don't have the same depth at wide receiver that we had last year, but I think we've got talent, especially at the top end. And, the other guys are young. You still got to rotate some of those guys in. I'm interested to see what happens with Bussy, because I think Bussy this coming year might play more offense than defense. And in 2 years, maybe start shifting the other way. I don't know. But I think this year he might see the field on offense even.
Yeah, I hear you. So we agree there. We think the offense is upper tier level. We think there's a lot of talent, just putting it all together. It all depends on the O line.
So, yeah. So I think that's where things sit. To recap, what we're talking: Bama, Ole Miss, maybe at the top. You like Georgia up there. I like Georgia
You
in
keep
that
saying
second tier.
Bama up there. I never said Bama at the top. Why do you say we agree that Bama? I never agreed Bama's at the top. I never said that.
I like to put words in your mouth.
You just did. We like what were we saying Bama and no. I'm gonna say Ole Miss is at
No,
the
no.
top right
Ags
now.
Tailgate says Bama, Ole Miss at the top.
I think Ole Miss is at the top.
Georgia, and Missouri, the second level. LSU, A&M, third level. Okay, so I think everybody understands. Hey, questions from the tailgate.
All right.
Corey, your boy Johnny, the last couple of weeks or whatever, has been out there doing all these interviews and talking all kinds of mess, man. What are your thoughts?
Hey man, it's his life. He lived it. I like to hear him talk. I like to know what's going on. There's a lot of stuff I didn't know about, you know, at the time. I didn't know that Hoyer was trying to blackball Johnny. I didn't know that. I think it's funny to hear that stuff now. Johnny, he was he did himself in. He had a lot of talent, could have done a lot of stuff, just screwed it all up. I don't think he's making excuses for any of that. I just like him. I like to hear him talk about these other players. I like to talk about the other quarterbacks that came through. I mean, he really liked what's his name, the guy that went to Oklahoma that won the Heisman. What's his name? Kyler Murray.
Tyler.
Oh, he's Johnny loved that guy. Sounds like you got Kyler Murray on the team. You give him the ball. You start Kyler Murray. So I guess no
Yeah.
decision. That's not a decision. You start Kyler Murray.
Let me say this. I have always expressed my deep love for Johnny Manziel. Johnny football is my favorite, hands down, Aggie football player, college football player ever. Ever. There has never, in my opinion, been a more exciting college football player on the planet. Ever.
Yeah.
Like the things that dude did on the field, on Kyle Field, are just absolutely phenomenal and unheard of. Okay. I cannot express that in any other way or any stronger. Love Johnny football.
Yeah.
His whole attack on Brian Hoyer, I think, is garbage.
I enjoyed it.
Look, I would ask a question and then they'd answer it and then I'd ask it again and he's like, well, you should have got it the first. Like, Johnny, bro, the fact that you didn't work at being a quarterback in the NFL doomed your NFL career.
Yeah.
But you can't blame anybody but yourself for your lack of effort in that room. The dude he said it. He didn't put in any work. NFL quarterback is about work. There isn't a single person that has gotten out of that requirement to be an NFL quarterback. You got to put in the time. And, his comments just sound a little bit like
Immature.
he's making an excuse to try to blame somebody else, man. And I love Johnny, and I love the fact that he's got a bar on Northgate, and things are going well. and all those types of things. And I hope he does great, man, and stay in the limelight, man. Go if they're going to get you on an interview, go get interviews, man, and
There you go.
talk about everything, whatever. But
Yep.
like, Brian Hoyer, this is the guy we're going to blame for my lack of success today. Brian freaking Hoyer, that guy's never affected anybody in the NFL. He's a horrible quarterback. Who cares? Who cares? And let me tell you about your boy Kyler Murray. That guy's has been the biggest diva quarterback in the last 20 years or longer in the NFL, right? I mean, he couldn't get it done at Arizona the last couple of years. He hadn't had a good offense. And now all of a sudden he's God's gift. He had a couple good years at Oklahoma. I'll give him that. He had one good year at Oklahoma, right? Just one. That's it.
Would you draft Murray as a fantasy quarterback? Would you take him?
No.
You wouldn't? You would
No,
never
because
take
he's gonna
Kyler
end up
Murray as
getting
a fantasy
hurt.
quarterback?
He's gonna end up getting hurt.
You would never take him, huh?
I mean, I think I took him a couple years ago, but
There you go. I like that.
listen, I don't want to hear about Kyler Murray being this great, pay this guy $70 million a year. Arizona's regretting that contract that like a week after they signed it, right? They literally had to put a clause in there that he had to do homework.
He had to quit playing video games. He had to quit playing Call of Duty or something.
Get out of here, man. Don't talk to me about Kyler Murray. That guy sucks. All right. That was my rant today.
You did good.
We did good. All right, Corey. Gig 'em Aggies, AP, C Money, signing out from the tailgate.